Hi, my name is Mike from Radiant Photography, and today we're going to be reviewing the Canon 70-200 f4L lens. Now this lens is a very common lens for when you're just starting to get into any kind of photography that you would need a telephoto lens for. It's kind of a medium range lens. It's more expensive than the low-end lenses you can find because it's in the L range. But at the same time, it's less expensive than some of the higher end lenses that can cost several $1,000s. So first, let's just take a look at how the lens behaves. Again, this is not that big of a zoom. It is fairly lightweight. You see the zoom ring here, and it turns very smoothly, like you would expect an L lens to behave. And then up front, you have the focus ring. And the focus distance window shows here, and you can focus all the way down to 1.2 meters. And so I've never actually had a problem with the close focusing aspect of this lens. I mean, it gets as close as I would expect it to. And actually, it does all right when you're wanting to get some like macro style photography. It gets you pretty close, and since it's such a sharp lens, and the aperture is low enough that it really kind of makes for a nice smooth background as well. Now in the middle here, again, you have the focusing distance window, and then you have a couple of switches, the auto and manual focus switch, and the focusing range switch, which you can either go the entire focusing range, or if you're taking pictures of things that are more distant, you can achieve faster focus by switching to the 3 meter to infinity range. Other than that, I mean, it has a 67mm front filter size, and it's actually, I mean, it's a pretty big element, and lets in a decent amount of light. Again, this is an f4 lens, so you actually can do decent work with it. With a modern camera, you can do some decent work indoors if the lighting is good. Otherwise, you're really going to want to restrict it to outdoor use. But it is sharp, wide open, and so really you shouldn't hesitate to use it at f4. Now, the cost of this lens is about $650 retail. Sometimes Canon will run rebates on it though, so you could find it closer to $600 if you're lucky. Again, it's a 70-200, so if you're using it on a crop sensor camera, then the range is a 112 to 320. And so actually, I mean, especially if you're on a crop sensor, to be out at 300 millimeters for $650 is a pretty good deal. So again, for pros, I mean, we're looking at, it's a very sharp lens. Sharp, wide open through the range. I've noticed it being sharp in center, corners, and various all across the frame. And it's also has very good color reproduction. So when you're actually out focusing, you'll notice that the colors are very vivid and very bright, and it's very true to real life. And it does a really nice job representing what you're seeing. Now the other another pro is the focusing speed. It's very quick. It has the USM motor on it, and so if you're focusing from something close up to something that's further away, it locks on immediately, and it's really good for if you're doing kind of like photographing like action sports outside during the day or something like that, where it will follow focus really well. Now, it's also lightweight. It's 25 ounces, and this is like roughly half the weight of the 70-200 f2.8 LIS, and so that's a much bigger lens than something like this. This is something that's easier to carry around with you. It's great for traveling. If you're putting it in a backpack, you're not really going to feel weighed down by it. Couple of pounds, even though it's a high quality glass. And the other benefits that I've seen is it's a very solid build. I mean, there's just no flex in it at all. It is a plastic body. It does not have weather sealing on it, but when you feel it in your hand, it's a very solid lens. You can bang it a bit and it will not fail on you. So, are there any drawbacks? Well, the biggest is that it doesn't have any kind of image stabilization. Now, Canon also sells a 70-200 f4L IS lens, and it's roughly twice the price of this lens to get that image stabilizer on there. But, I mean, it depends on what you're photographing, whether or not that's worth it to you. If you're doing mostly outdoor photography during the day, this will do you just fine. You're not going to really miss the image stabilizer. Where the image stabilizer comes in handy is if you're shooting indoors and you don't have a lot of fast action, then the image stabilizer would really come in handy. Is it worth it to go for the f2.8 lenses? Those are quite a bit more expensive for that extra stop of light. And I mean, granted, the highest end 2.8 with image stabilization is a brilliant lens, but it costs $2,000. So you have to weigh if that's worth it for you. Now, again, when you're using this on a full frame camera, actually, it's easier to use it in lower light because you don't have that focal length magnifier. So, like I said, on a crop camera, all the way out at the end of this, it's a 320mm lens, and so using the 1/4 focal length rule, if you're trying to take a picture of something, you should be using this at 1/250 or even 1/500 of a second for a shutter speed. But if you're on a full frame camera, that reduces down, drops to 1/200, and so I've actually been able to use this at indoor events with decent lighting, really to pretty good effect. It does a really nice job, and it's certainly fast enough, especially newer cameras that have really that work really well and at high ISO settings. This will do just fine. And sometimes the drawback that I would say is that sometimes f4 just isn't enough to kind of blow out that background if you really want that background to blur away. If you're using it in close range, like I was mentioning the macro instance before, then it will definitely blow out the background, especially when you have it set all the way out to 100mm. But if you're taking an image that's further away, then it might not be quite as far as, or it might not give you quite the bokeh, the background blur that you're looking for. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing I wanted to mention is how it does with the teleconverter. Now, if you get like I have a 1.4x Canon's version 3 teleconverter, and I've used it on this and actually does really nicely. It's actually fairly sharp and basically turns it into a 280mm lens at the long end. And so when you factor that in, and then on a crop sensor camera, you're really quite far out there. And so it actually performs very well, and then it would become an f5.6 lens. And it's at f5.6, even when it's wide open, using the teleconverter, it's still plenty sharp. Obviously, it's not as sharp as without the teleconverter, but it certainly gives you a big benefit, more of a benefit than blowing an image up without the teleconverter on there. So overall, I would highly recommend this lens. If you're looking for something that is really small for travel, you might be better served, and you have a crop sensor camera, then you might be better served by something like the 55-250 lens that Canon sells in a lot of kits. But if you have a full frame camera and you're looking for a lightweight travel lens with really high image quality, you can't get much better than the 70-200 f4L. If you're looking for something that you're doing events or something where you're going to be doing a lot of indoor photography, then I would recommend going either with this lens with an image stabilizer in it, or go for one of the f2.8 lenses. Again, my name is Mike, and thanks for watching.